Mic check, 1, 2, 1, 2. What's up? What's going on? Bread and butter. Was geht Berlin? Wie geht's? Good? You doing good? So welcome everybody to the Adidas Here to Inspire panel. My name is Wana and I am going to be having a conversation on confidence, creativity, and culture, and also, very subtly, talk about the new Adidas Falcon. So, to explore this topic, we've invited creative and confident women, as well as these three guests over there. Just kidding. Welcome everybody, our fabulous guests, singer and songwriter Mö. Everybody give it up. Editor at Hypebae, Gill. Give it up, from London. And Adidas representative and category director, Slavka Jancikova, is it right? Oh, welcome. How you guys doing? You good? So, as I said, the panel's topic is Here to Inspire, and it's about female empowerment and feminism and confidence and this whole really omnipresent, important topic. I would like to know, why did you guys decide to be part of it? Why did you guys want to join this panel? Maybe you said it?
Yes, well, I mean, for me, of course, you know, being a performer and a singer, it's so important for me that I feel like I can express myself truthfully and be myself, and therefore this whole female empowerment and empowerment in general is something that's very important to me and something I think a lot about in my work.
Thank you. What about you, Deb?
Yeah, I just think that female empowerment is such an important topic to be bringing up now more than ever, and to have the chance to speak about it with three other amazing women and all of you guys is just amazing. So that's why I wanted to be here today.
Yeah, and I'm excited to be here to really kind of bring to life what Falcon actually embodies. So in a not subtle way, I apologize for that, but I think very appropriate for this moment because it really is more than a shoe. It's all about mindset, the daring, risk-taking mindset, and really enabling all the women to originate their style and be who they are. So it really goes beyond just a bit of a marketing gimmick to really having a message for women.
Yeah, and how the new Falcon is related to today's topic, we're going to explore that later. But when talking about how confidence can inspire creativity and self-expression, we must also talk about today's location, Berlin, as it is a city of freedom and creativity. And of course, there's a detailed and important history that lays behind it, but looking back not too long ago, the 90s played a big role in how the city has developed into what it is today. Back then, well, still today, but back then even more, rents were really cheap. Everybody had lots of time and energy to do what they wanted. They set up projects and clubs, and Berlin gave them the possibility to do so, and Berlin gave them the possibility to live their ideas. I remember being a kid, as a 6, 7, or 8-year-old, sitting in front of the TV and watching the Berlin Love Parade. Do you guys know that? Love Parade? It was like this huge techno festival with, I don't know, hundreds and thousands of people. And I was just sitting there watching these people naked, colorful, making out, dancing on buses, and didn't really understand what it is, but to me that somehow became my most memorable, this is like my biggest association that I have with the 90s, the Love Parade in Berlin. This is what I think about, even though I wasn't part of it, even though I've never been there. And also, of course, 90s rap and music were really huge to me. I mean, come on, 90s female artists were next level. Every genre saw a surge of female representation, even, or especially in hip hop. Salt and Pepper, Missy Elliott, Lil Kim, Queen Latifah, so many names. And not to forget, of course, the cultural wonder of the 90s, that is the Spice Girls, who introduced us to a revolutionary concept, girl power. So I know you're a huge Spice Girls fan growing up. They were really a big inspiration for you. What does girl power mean to you? How would you define female empowerment?
Yeah, well, I should say, I remember the first time I ever saw the Spice Girls on the television or wherever it was, that I was just like, oh, first time ever I felt like this was speaking like directly to me. It was something that was for me and I could fall in love with it, you know, like these 5 different kind of types of girls, and it was all about friendship and empowerment and being yourself. And I remember being so drawn to Sporty Spice because I felt like I could see myself in that kind of, you know, thing that she was embodying. And I just remember feeling like, this is what I want to do. This is who I want to be. And then I remember later on that I realized that at this time in the 90s, there was also another sort of girl power going on, which was in Olympia and like on the West Coast with the whole Riot Girl movement and this kind of, you know, the grunge music and Sonic Youth, who I then became like a massive fan of as well.
What about you now?
Yeah, I mean, like most people, I'm a huge fan still of the Spice Girls, and like you said as well, there was almost like a personality for everyone, which meant that, you know, girls who were into very different styles and different hobbies still felt like they were represented, which is so important. But also, like you touched on, the Riot Girl movement was huge, and although at that time I couldn't appreciate it because I was, yeah, exactly right. So I was a kid, but looking back, I think it's something that still, you know, is so relevant today with, you said, female empowerment. You know, they were outspoken, they were obnoxious, they were everything that people said women shouldn't be. And I think that's just still such a massive influence on people today, bands like Bikini Kill and Bratmobile, even Courtney Love and Hole, and still their style is still so inspiring. And again, I think they embody what women could be and what they should be, which is just unafraid to be themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, all about breaking the rules and really kind of taking risks, telling your truth. That's sort of my memory of that moment as well. I actually remember Love Parade as well. My mom didn't let me go. Always wanted to, never made it.
And what you just said, we're only realizing it now, actually, and I'm only understanding now how this was the first theme of feminism that I've experienced, like this female artist in the industry that represented so many different types of women. So today, more than 20 years later, in 2018, do you feel empowered? And if so, what makes you feel empowered, or if not, what doesn't?
Well, I think what makes me feel empowered is the feeling of just feeling like I can be myself and I can be free and I don't have to fit into any box. I fit into my own box, and also I feel in making art or making music, both in the industry but also on a creative side of things, I think the best stuff always comes when you're just being yourself and you're being truth. I feel like every time I've tried to fit into a certain whatever beauty standard or a box of some sort, it's always gone terribly wrong, and that just always proves to me that no, like go with your guts and what you feel good in, because it's gonna show.
What about you, Slavka?
Yeah, I agree. It probably translates very well to the corporate world, which is maybe not as sexy as the world of music, but really just staying true to who you are and having that seat at the table, even, you know, with male leadership and being able to get your point of view through and drive forward some of the ideas that you have.
So the thing that you also said, I mean, self-confidence, but it's also setting your fears aside and being brave. How do you guys, how do you guys manage to remove inner and outer obstacles in your life in order to push forward?
Well, I mean, again, I feel like, I mean, obviously, very often I'm faced with something where I'm like, or whatever, but I always think, I mean, you just have to push yourself to a place where you can feel good about it. And again, as I said, like, I always come back to that thing, and every time I try to be something that doesn't feel good to me, then it's really bad. And so, you know, I think it's super important that you are being original and that you try to listen to yourself always of how you define your own feminine energy or masculine energy for that matter.
Do you have have you figured out what to say to yourself, maybe a mantra or something whenever you're feeling insecure in order to be more confident? Like, for example, before walking on the stage, when I'm nervous, I'm trying to tell myself, come on, don't be nervous, you're the star. Like something, you know, something to push me in order to make me feel good, to make me feel, you know, confident. Do you have like figured out a way, a manner to you know, deal with these kind of insecurities?
Well, for me, it's not so much a mantra that I have, but it's more the people that I surround myself with. So I'm fortunate enough to have an amazing network of friends, and so when I'm freaking out, like before coming out here, I have a great WhatsApp group, and I can WhatsApp people and be like, oh, I'm freaking out, and they're like, no, you've got this. I think it's really important to surround yourself with people that empower you as well.
Yes.
That definitely helps me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and going back to the conversation we just had upstairs, just realizes that sometimes you're way more self-critical than others are of you. Sort of keeping that in mind.
But also that it's okay to feel vulnerable and that it's okay to be nervous. It's actually totally fine.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I just think embracing, or for me personally, just doing a meditation, or you know, being really aware of this moment and seeing the opportunity, and you know, changing your negative thoughts into a positive instantly can help. But I mean, there's also, of course, there's this sometimes inner battle that we have to fight, but of course there's a even, I think, bigger battle from the outside. So talking about female empowerment, and it's, of course, I mean, it's omnipresent, we're talking about it. It's becoming a bigger topic, and the collective awareness, which is good and important, but it's especially very long time overdue, because for a long time, society has put a lot of pressure on women and men, but especially on women, to from norms and customs that she has to fulfill, prove, or fit in. In your opinion, what are still some of the biggest gender stereotypes that need to be resolved?
Well, for me, I'm coming from an industry where I work within streetwear and sneakers. It's kind of the idea that you don't know what you're talking about. Working in such a heavily male and dominated industry means that often you are overlooked, and kind of people don't take you so seriously. And I think that's a huge gender stereotype that is true across many different industries.
Yes, definitely. I feel like, so I remember starting, I mean, coming from when I started doing music, I came more in the, left-wing punk environment and stuff. So I grew up in a pretty progressive music community, but later on when I crossed over more to pop, I definitely tried this thing again where you feel like you have to prove yourself 10 times because you're a woman. Yeah.
But like regarding just general gender stereotypes, so for example, saying women are emotional, men are really, I don't want to say strong, but tough. And like these, I think there's so many things that we grow up with, taking, for the standard of thinking that's normal, how that is supposed to be everything. But I think these kind of stereotypes, or these kind of like assumptions, or even the pressure on genders is like slowly, hopefully, drifting away. Do you feel like there's one thing still in particular about women that the majority of people think or assume, and which is not correct or not right?
That women don't understand football? Just a joke.
I think, like you said, it's maybe like the part about women being emotional. So I think people can often take, emotion for an overreaction, and they use emotion as a negative thing, where actually it's
hysterical.
Yeah, exactly, right? And didn't that word basically stem from it was kind of like a slur for any woman who was acting in a way that people thought she shouldn't, right? So even that very word is still, I guess, prominent today. Any sort of time you express any kind of feeling, people can take that to be that maybe you're aggressive because you're asking for something that you should be given, or do you know what I mean? So it's like any emotion that you portray is kind of blown out of proportion.
Anybody thirsty? I would have a little bit still water or water. Everyone else.
So have you, like, we all have been able to observe, like, development towards diversity of body types and media representation. Again, for example, me myself, I was like really long time insecure about my body hair. I mean, that's not definitely like it's not directly body diversity, but it's diversity, yes. And I really felt pressure to be hairless, but for the past year, I mean, yes, I still like shave, but I don't put myself. I don't put so much pressure on myself anymore because I feel like why? How did your perception of your own body change within the last years?
I mean, I think we're moving in a direction where it's, as you say, where things are getting better with these kind of things, which is obviously fantastic, but there's still so much more to be done. But it's great that diversity is really something that people talk about now, and the whole thing about, again, have a more like genderless view on things, which, again, all these things are amazing, but there's still a way to go. But it's very inspiring, I think, looking at the younger generation and see how this is more and more key topics for them. And so,
has this influenced you in a way? Has your perception of your body changed in the past years regarding this whole diversity? Do you feel more comfortable, or?
I mean, I think so, but I think always throughout all of my life, and especially after becoming a performer, where you're faced with people looking at you and judging you in a way. I felt this thing again of like, I mean, I know I'm repeating myself a little bit, but that I cannot hide who I am or like hide this body that I have. Like, I don't want to. I want to just feel free. I want to feel good, because if I feel good, then it's going to be better what I project out. You know, it's so important to have that confidence in yourself, even though if you, I mean, of course I have that thing like, oh, this is not, could be, whatever, all these kind of things. But in the end of the day, it'll make me 1,000 times happier to just be like, whatever, take it or leave it, you know? Like, I mean, so, yeah.
Has it become easier for you guys in the past years to be confident about your body?
For me personally, I think it's just sort of with, let's just say it out loud, getting older. I think you kind of care less and you really accept who you are, what your body looks like. But I do agree that what you're seeing in media and how we portray women, where they can see women, is extremely important. I think seeing that diversity in that space is very important, just like role models and the young generation really seeing that you just don't have to be one type of person or look or body.
Do you think that this whole new body consciousness is a trend, or would you say it's rather authentic process of change in a way?
I would like to think that it's authentic. I think with, I guess, the rise of social media, where everybody has a platform and we're all posting pictures of ourselves, I think we're only becoming more transparent. And like your previous question, you know, if you're like, if people are feeling more confident to not sort of nitpick pictures of themselves and be like, oh, I've got a double chin, so I'm going to delete that one, or whatever. And hopefully, I think with the sort of rise of that, a lot of brands now do sort of campaigns around like, we're not airbrushing anything out. Hopefully, I think it's here to stay, and I hope so, yeah.
You wrote an interesting article on Hypebae about female empowerment within the streetwear culture. How is streetwear connected to the debate on body consciousness, would you say?
That's an interesting question. I think when you look back to the roots of many streetwear brands, and you know, since it started, it's always been a bit of a boys' club. A lot of the brands were run by, worn by men, and so the female body image throughout, you know, the last 20, 30 years has always been hypersexualized. So there hasn't been, you know, like, it's not really a focus on a woman, it's more a woman as an object. Hopefully in the last couple of years, what I've been seeing that I hope continues to grow is, you know, women sort of reclaiming that. And so, yeah, if they want to be hypersexualized, that's great, that's their image, they can do with that what they want. platforms, hopefully like Hypebae, I hope are driving forward the message that you can be a woman who's interested in streetwear and not have to dress a certain way that if you don't want to. I think the conversation and the image around women in streetwear is changing for the better, for sure.
Slavka, so maybe by now people are even wondering more about how this whole topic is related to the Adidas Falcon. Can you tell us a little bit about the idea behind the Falcon silhouette and what it has to do with today's topic?
Sure, and I kind of alluded to that at the beginning as well, but it is truly about the mindset of Falcon. It was born in 1997 in an era that was all about women empowerment and women breaking rules. And already then the silhouette was pushing the edge in terms of what a sports shoe could look like, right? Because when you go back to Adidas Originals archive, the Adidas archive, the original silhouettes and models are always inspired by that archive. But we have to remember that that archive is shoes that used to be performance shoes, right? So even for a sports shoe, it was pushing some of the boundaries into that fashion edge. And so we remastered it, brought it back 2 decades later to again celebrate that boldness, the individuality, and sort of the ability to take risks. So that's why we do feel that it is more than just a shoe and really pushing those boundaries.
And mentioning this, just a shoe, just a piece of clothing, how do you guys, do you have I mean, there's probably not a conscious strategy behind it, but do you rather dress the way you feel, or do you dress the way you want to feel?
I think it's a combination. I mean, because sometimes I'll see something, I'll be like, I want to wear that, you know, and then I wear it and I feel weird, and then, you know, I change it up and make it into my own thing, and then, you know, so it's a kind of a combo.
Yeah, I agree. I think it depends on the situation for sure, but most days, you know, I dress because the way I dress because I want to be comfortable and I want to feel like me. But of course, if I'm going to if I'm going somewhere cool and exciting or doing something fun, I might switch it up a bit as well.
And if you're being honest, how much do you think with fashion and clothing, do we all really follow our instincts, or are we just wanting to impress others? Because imagine there's a world with no humans and you're alone. You never have to wear makeup again. Or, like, would you still, like, what's the motivation behind being well dressed and having your own style?
I think it comes down to, like, for me, it's like I feel a bit more human, a bit more put together when I'm dressed properly. So if it kind of changes your mindset, right? So if I want to seize the day and make things happen, and I put on a really great outfit, put on some makeup and do my hair and feel like I'm in control and can go and like run that.
Yeah.
And so, a Slavka question to you. So, brands like Adidas obviously help shaping the lifestyle of an era. Like with Run DMC and Adidas, they did that for hip hop. And also in the 90s, it was crop tops and platform shoes and baggy pants. And do you think that the comeback of these styles is more than just, you know, a fashion trend, and rather reflects, you know, the rebellious attitude of the 90s?
I think it's the nostalgia reimagined for today, really. So some call it a trend, but we like to also think of it as bringing that collective memory of the 90s for the generation today that maybe has no recollection of the 90s, right? We do to some extent, but then the youngest generation has no idea what it looked like in the 90s. So kind of bringing that memory back and making it relevant for today is what's so exciting about that. Exactly, putting that modern spin on it. Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's always like the trends probably are, I think, I can see it with the whole millennium trend now. You know, this whole Nokia 3210, like these old phones, like cell phones, and you know, the low waist pants and the, you know, your earrings, the whole millennium vibe. is like, I feel like it's a reaction to our digitalized world right now, where you go back to, you know, where it all started, maybe as a reflection of that or a reaction to that. Do you think that is the same with the 90s, maybe?
I mean, isn't it also like a general thing in all humans, like that we move forward and then at a certain point it's like, oh, this is hip again, or that is hip again, and then we look forward for the new thing, and then we need some reference from the future, no, from the past, to make it into something super duper cool.
Yeah, but do you think it's just a random, like let's just go back to the 20s and you know whatever?
No, I don't think it's random. Yeah, no, I think you're right in what you say, but I also think it's that time now, and again, but like that the 90s, it's like I felt like for the last 5 years it's been coming, you know, and now it's like really, boom, 90s are back, but it's like in 2018.
Talking about the 90s and your role models back then, except for Spice Girls, did you have any other female role models? And if so, why were they your role models?
I mean, I was, throughout all of my teen years, Kim Gordon from Sonic Youth, she was my biggest hero. And she actually still is, because I remember, again, being a teenager, you know, it can be rather difficult being a teenager, you're founding yourself and everything. And I just remember that she felt like, again, like just like Sporty Spice from Spice Girls had did when I was a kid, but as a teenager, Kim Gordon really embraced this like androgynous, and like she was cool, she sang like no other else, you know, and she played the bass and she looked so cool, and I felt like she just really, I think she actually, just having her as a role model helped me like find myself more, because I saw that there was a way to be this type of woman, you know, that I myself felt like I wanted to be.
Was there anyone in your direct environment, you know, real life that did somehow, you know, play the same role for you, or was she one of the few representatives of what you just described?
I mean, there were others. I was also, I mean, Karen O from the Yeah Yeah Yes. I mean, there was a couple of others, but in my environment, again, I wasn't in this, what do you say, like, activism, into activism and the politics in the left-wing environment, and so there was actually many really cool female role models for me around that time that I could look up to and be like, oh, like, you know, crust punks and stuff were like this.
So would you just say in general, how important was it for you to have female role models, and what way were they trailblazers to your own creative path and your own confidence development?
I think it's super important, obviously, to have those role models, because you have to see someone that maybe looks like you or embodies the kind of things that you feel like you embody, so you know that, you know, you can get to where you want to be. So whether that's, you know, artists, or whether it's someone in your own family or friend circle or whatever that's doing something great, I think it's like, without having that to aspire to and know that it can happen, it can be quite difficult to believe in yourself when you can't see a representation of yourself in those positions.
I honestly, when I was researching this whole topic, and even before, I was thinking about how important role models were, and actually I came to, you know, the realization that I think like role models are essential. They're so important, like for every step in your life, for every, you know, I mean, there were teachers that have inspired me with one sentence they said, or with one, like, how they made me confident with, you know, how they treated me, or people that I've met along my way on, you know, on my job, like so many important people that have shaped who I am. And I think even especially as a kid, as a young girl growing up, I think it's so difficult to become self-confident or even find your own path if you don't have, you know, role models.
I think you're right, and I think still also, it's still, as you know, continue the journey in life, it's important to still find new and like look back and like just have someone to,
I mean, this is also talking about female empowerment. How do you guys think can we as women support each other better? Because I think every woman is praising mutual, support and mutual empowerment, but the reality looks different. So how do you think can we make a better, environment for women to be, successful?
I'm gonna just pick up on the role model and try to answer your question. I think we have that responsibility and privilege to be the role models for that younger generation. And it actually struck me the other day at work when I spoke with someone on my team who is younger, and they, without it sounding pretentious or anything like that, they look up to us in certain roles and positions and successes as the role models. So kind of taking that responsibility not lightly, I think, is something important.
And how would you say, still there's so many industries, like you said, the sneaker and streetwear culture, male-dominated industries. How can you, or what would be your advice for women to be more confident in male-dominated industries?
Yeah, I think just to be sure of yourself and your abilities and your knowledge, because I think so often if you are in a male-dominated industry, it's really, really easy to feel like you don't know as much. So be confident in yourself. And also I think I guess touching back on how you can be a role model is to just to help other women, help other people who, if someone wants your advice or someone DMs you on Instagram because they need some tips, help them out. It doesn't take up much time, and it can
it feels so good.
Yeah, and it can really help someone. I think it's super important to share your knowledge, because when it's a heavily male-dominated industry, and as a woman you get a space, it's easy to become territorial about that space and not want to help anyone else break in because they could be your competition. But let's not make it a competition. There's enough space for everyone.
And I think a good thing I feel right now in the music industry, there's really a thing going on of female supporting each other and collaborating and really, creating a unity together. And I think, again, as you say, it's so important and it's so helpful and it's just so nice. It makes everyone happier.
Yeah, and also part of us becoming confident and not seeing each other as competition all the time. Talking about our, perception and our views, I think it's also important to talk to the men and what they can change in their perception of women. Is there something you want to share with the audience, with the men, with the guys that are listening here?
Well, just in regards to that whole thing about competition, I think competition can be a good thing if it's a healthy competition where you support each other, regardless whether you're a man or a female, or, yeah, just wanted to say.
I agree.
Yeah, I just think I guess this just goes across all genders. It's not really specific, but just remember that there's something you can learn from everyone, regardless of their background or their gender or whatever. Everybody probably knows something that you don't know, so be willing to accept that and listen to them.
And my last question would be, so along your way, becoming, I'm assuming you're confident, you're creative, obviously, but what's been one of your biggest learnings that you would like to share with the audience, something you would want to share with them?
Well, I think I actually already touched it a little bit, but I remember one of the first times that, because for many years I was trying to become an artist and making music, and I remember back then that I would always try and make something that sounded similar to the stuff that was kind of popular, and I actually did know that I maybe was changing myself a little bit to try and be this different person, but I was just so eager, to get my voice out there. But it didn't happen, and then the first time that I sat down, this, I'm just gonna do what I feel like right now, and that was the first time that I started to people paying attention, and that was such an important lesson for me to learn, because I constantly think back on that every time people come up to me and say oh, you should do this or you should do blah blah blah, and it's it's good to take advice, it's a good thing, but it's really important that you are being true to yourself.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think one of the biggest things I've learned is just to put yourself out there. There's probably so many opportunities that I missed in the past because I didn't put myself out there because I didn't think I deserved those opportunities or that I could bring anything to them. And yeah, what I've learned in the past few years is that you don't get those opportunities if you don't put yourself forward for them. So don't wait for anyone else to get you in that position. You just have to do it yourself.
Kind of like building on those thoughts, just my favorite expression, maybe sometimes a bit controversial, is you don't always have to be liked. You need to be respected. And I kind of live by that rule. It's not always easy, but you're just not going to be liked by everyone at all times. And I think that's okay.
Thank you very much, girls. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you all for participating, and wish you a great, great time at the Bread and Butter. Bye.